Hello, Flickin' Fanatics. Welcome to the spoiler-free review for Black Panther Wakanda Forever, starring myself, Jesse Swift, Sean Wingblade, and Chris Anthony Lopez. We're going to get into talking about this movie and some of our first reactions right after this. I got to be honest, as much as I hate it, I am tempted, not the movie, but I'm really tempted to just be like Todd and be like, Wakanda Forever.
I don't think you're allowed to do that.
That makes me uncomfortable.
No, do it. Go ahead.
As long as you do right or left, right?
Yeah.
Just don't
Man, nobody buys African shit like me. Hey, everyone. Welcome to our review of Wakanda Forever.
The Todd is Todd from
Yeah,
She-Hulk,
Todd.
right? He's the worst.
He is the worst. We're off to a great start. So this is a safe place if you haven't seen the movie. If you have seen the movie, we will have some friendly conversations. It's going to be a really great time. We definitely have thoughts. The thing is, we've had no conversation about this movie prior to recording this. I have no idea what anybody on screen thinks. All I've heard is thoughts redacted from Chris right here because he likes to screw with us every time we do a review.
Chris continually trolls us on every new thing that has come out over the last few weeks. He's like, guys, what I thought was
Thoughts
redacted. I'll let you know once we hit go.
Absolutely.
I like the suspense. I want to keep it. I want to keep it. I want to keep us on edge.
Keep it real.
Right.
Keep it real. On the edge of a Wakandan spear. So the way that we're going to kind of break this down is we're going to take turns kind of taking the spotlight, if you will. We're going to talk about positives, negatives, and we kind of want to do like 3 positive things that really stuck out to us, a couple negatives. And I think between the 3 of us here, you'll have a pretty good idea of what we thought about the movie and what to expect if you haven't seen it yet. And then you can look forward to our spoiler video dropping tomorrow?
Most likely tomorrow. We're going to record it right after we end the broadcast. So Thank you for watching live, and check out the spoiler review tomorrow that will drop. And make sure you come back to this video too and comment on this one as well.
Absolutely. So I think just speaking of keeping people in suspense, we will talk about these pros and cons, and then we can give our wrap-up rating of the movie post that conversation.
There you go.
So is there anyone that's ready to go with their pros? Because otherwise I can kind of wing it.
I'm waiting to hear what Chris has to say because his
I'll go
thoughts
first.
have been redacted.
Chris is ready? All right. Chris is like, I have to talk about this movie. He's in the chat. He's like, he also saw it first. He saw it first. He's been sitting with this movie the longest.
Exactly.
Out of the 3 of us, it's been approximately, when I got to the theater, 3 hours ago, I want to say, something like that. So I've been sitting on this for a minute. I had enough time to watch Ant-Man afterwards before the stream. So for the record. But okay, 3 pros.
3 pros.
Okay, am I doing cons too or no?
Yeah. If you want to just also, along with the pros, give your overall just thoughts, like whatever.
That's how we'll do it, I guess.
So before we get to the pros, right? This movie was, and for those that watched the video, like our little preamble to this whole conversation. First of all, thank you. Second off, this is going to be a weird movie to talk about solely because of the circumstances that are around it. Yeah. So it's almost going to be like part tribute, almost, at least the movie, and then part actual Marvel flick and the meat of what we expect out of these MCU releases. But generally, overall, I thought this movie was good. I would be remiss to say that there were some problems to me that shined brighter in weaker spots than others, but I found myself very pleased with a lot of what we got, and I'm glad this movie exists. I'll say that. I'm in the movie that we got specifically, and I'll start with my positives, right? Like my pros. The first one, off rip. This is a beautiful tribute to Chadwick Boseman. Off rip. Like this movie, it's not just, let's address T'Challa and then here's movie. This entire thing is a love letter to Chadwick Boseman, not only as an actor, as a person, but as T'Challa as a character too. And they do a lot of love. They give him a ton of time. And this movie, although there's we cover a decent amount of time within it, we are forever grieving throughout it. I feel like there's no point when we stop. I feel like the grieving ends and the movie ends almost. So like the entire runtime is just, yeah, we have to acknowledge that our king has passed away and that this man is gone. He's no longer with us, but also keeping the tires going.
If I may, the film's, it's really solely kind of focused on the core of processing grief and the different methods of doing that and the different impacts it can have on people, or the impacts you can let it have on you or not let it have on you.
1,000%. And I guarantee that both of y'all will expand on it more so when we get there. The second thing I want to point out other performances, but specifically, if I can, Tenochtitlan. I want to be as serious as I possibly can. Namor may be my favorite person in the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe, and I'm not, and I don't want to sound hyperbolic. I know I just met him a few hours ago, but this version of Namor is drastically different from the one that we get in the comics. It's not the same character. There are some things that were carried through, but for the most part, it's a whole reimagining. Granted, the MCU is prone to that at this point, but Tenochtitlan, he commands the screen.
Absolutely.
Every time he is on it, it's his. And I know, like I said, the performances across the board, great. And some may shine brighter than others, depending on how you want to look at the movie. But to me, this is Tenochtitlan's coming out party. And I am very happy I attended. I love him. I love him in this movie. I think he's great.
So that's definitely a one, right?
He's so good. And the last thing I will mention is the Riri Williams of it all. I know this is more for the spoiler discussion, and I will keep that for that. But this movie does a great job of introducing the character to us, having her have her established role in the film, but not overexposing her at the same time before her own Disney Plus series comes out next year. So Riri Williams, Dominique Thorne, talk about scene stealers. I feel like this movie is full of them, but Tenochtitlan and Dominique Thorne as Namor and Riri respectively, they are great in this movie, amongst others, but I guarantee the other two guys will discuss them as we go.
All right.
Just to start us off.
It was subtle enough.
Yeah. Sean, do you have your three ready, or do you want me to hop on the next?
I don't know if I have three specifically. I can just kind of throw some
sound
bites out. Yeah, you can wrap this up.
Okay.
So I think that it might just be me agreeing with Chris, basically, with Chris's points already. I loved, because I knew nothing of Namor from the comics other than what I had heard in the lead up to this movie, because people have been talking about it. Everyone on the internet's a comic book expert as soon as the newest comic book movie is coming out, right? So I had heard this, that, the other. We've talked about it in chats and this and that. And I really enjoyed the changes they made to especially differentiate him from like being just Marvel's version of Aquaman.
Really, the only comparison you can make is that they're both from an underwater city, because they changed everything, connective tissue,
and that's perfect, because I don't know any different. So it all played for me. It was perfect. I agree that the way he plays Namor is fierce. I don't know if there's another word to describe it. He doesn't take shit. And he plays it with a ferocity, the character, and I loved it. I loved every second that he was on screen, basically. I think that if I had, I'll end on a positive. So I think that if I did have a negative, it would be maybe, I do agree that this whole thing was a grieving, party for Chadwick and T'Challa, and maybe a little bit too much. That's just my only negative. It was that we lived in that grieving cycle like you said, pretty much until the end credits started to roll. And not to say that they should have just like ignored it and moved on with their lives or anything. I wish that there was a little more to the movie than just the grieving process. And then as far as another positive is what you said with Riri, I totally agree with. As soon as any of the new characters, when they popped on screen, they were popping on screen. So they were just they weren't just there to be filler. And we didn't get a ton of new characters. We got a few, but they were there for a reason, and we didn't linger on them too long if they didn't stick around, or like we didn't waste too much time on Riri when, hey, we're going to get a whole show with her next year. And I'll just say the surprises that we did get that no one knew about popped, like maybe the biggest pop in the theater. And that's all I'll say about that.
We'll expand on that on the spoiler review.
We'll expand on that in the spoiler review, shortly.
Okay. Well, then I guess it's my turn now. Do you guys, before I go into this, do you have other thoughts that you want to add after this, or do you feel like that gave a good first impression for your thoughts on the film?
I don't mind giving a wrap up. Yeah, go ahead with your thoughts.
Okay. So, Wakanda Forever. That's me. Now I'm here. Is a movie
we're trying a new thing.
We're trying a new thing.
We're experimenting.
Yeah. And this was a little bit of an experiment in a lot of ways. They took a lot of risks in this movie. And I think largely more often than not, they worked out. This is a film that I really, 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 really liked a lot. I'm trying to decide if I loved it or not. I think which is weird, because like if you have a good experience for a movie and you're constantly throughout the movie thinking like, oh, I really like that and I really like that, and you get to the end of the movie and you're like, why didn't I all the way love it? I'm not entirely sure, but my one of my biggest hopes was that I was going to have a better time with some of the story elements and stuff than I did with the first Black Panther, because I'm in that super tiny, itty bitty, minor minority that doesn't love everything about the first Black Panther movie. I have issues, some problems, and I felt like I have a couple issues with this one too, but they were vastly different. I didn't feel like we were retreading the same problem. So that will bring me into a lot of the positive things that I have. The acting across the board, everybody was a powerhouse, whether it's Angela Bassett, Lupita Nyong'o, Denai Guerrero, who was funny as hell in this movie.
Yeah,
I
very funny.
Loved her. Getting introduced to Dominique Thorne. Letitia Wright brought it. 100% brought it in this movie. She brought so much emotion to an already emotionally gripping story. So there's the performances, as Chris went into ad nauseum, Tenoch Huerta as Namor, awesome, amazing. I think there were so many effects that looked really great in this. Like there's some dodgy ones, but I know I had a big problem with like the third act of the first Black Panther. I was like, there's a lot of dodgy effects in the end.
Who doesn't have a problem with that? The third act of that movie.
I mean, it's kind of like the third act of Wonder Woman. It's like we're good. What happened? And not all the effects are perfect in this movie, but effects aren't everything. So yeah, acting great. I really enjoyed the story. As you can already tell from the trailer, so this isn't a spoiler, but just the duel of these two countries coming to odds, and in the spoilers we'll talk about what brings them to come to conflict. But I thought that was handled very well. There's so much pride, and you have protective leaders, whether that be in Angela Bassett or in Namor, and it was all just done very well. I guess if I'm going to throw negative in there are moments where there are some other things happening in the story that revolve around characters that I feel like we're a little less invested in, that aren't part of Wakanda or Talokan. And it does take you not out of the movie, but maybe out of the invested moments. And they're not bad. They're fun scenes, but they just feel a little less cohesive to the rest of the story.
If you had to trim the film for another extra 10 minutes,
that's what I'd be hitting.
That's where I would have angled my my cutter at. Yeah,
just 10. See, and that was my thing, right?
I was just saying because that's probably the total time they were on screen. That's all.
Yeah.
I mean, but we really could have cut this movie down a little bit. And to your point, Sean, like the movie, and this isn't a spoiler, like we see it in the trailer. There's a funeral, right? For T'Challa. We straight up acknowledge what the real life events, but we reflect them into the MCU. And it is jarring, and it's beautifully done, and it probably is the most eye-popping and eye-catching thing in the entire movie. But we could have cut a good amount of this movie, and it would have been better in my eyes. Granted, if we're gonna talk about the things we necessarily didn't love, I didn't love the third act. And not for effects wise. I know in regards to the first Black Panther, I'm a real stickler. I rewatched it a couple days ago, and I'm a real stickler for that third act fight with Killmonger and T'Challa. I don't like it. This movie, the third act fight, is actually pretty rad.
Yeah.
Between Thoughts Redacted and Thoughts
Redacted. I was like, hey.
Like I thought it was really rad, right? But I was taken aback by how we got there. Okay. And the movie didn't get me back by the time the credits started rolling. Okay. And I was just the story at the end wasn't the best in my eyes. And it really bummed me out when the credits started to roll.
I can't wait to talk to you about where did it lose you, basically. So I'm very interested.
And I don't want to keep teasing the chat for the spoiler portion of all this.
Tell them. Well, I was gonna say not to stick around because that'll be tomorrow, but tune in. Make sure your alerts are set and that you're subscribed and all that good stuff.
Spoiler review coming tomorrow.
And my DMs are open if folks want to hear my thoughts, or if they want to argue with me, if they want to talk to me. And like my Twitter is right below Sean's chin. So
Chris is going to explain why he thought this was a 3-hour Thor: The Dark World.
And oh my god, you know how funny that tweet is. Okay.
Jacob, shout out to Jacob Blunden, friend of the show. He was trying to light the internet on fire when he put that in. 2 days ago.
Oh my god. Shout out to Jacob Blunden.
It is not that. I think we can. I mean, we can pretty much wrap up here, and we'll try to keep the video under 20, which is kind of our goal. Yeah. And so I think at the end, I really liked it. I think I liked the first one more if I'm comparing the two. I had a conversation with a friend who said, basically of like the 5 Black Panther appearances, which, we get 5 total now. He had this last, but all of those movies are also top tier movies. So this just happens to be the least favorite of these 5 favorite things type of thing. Right. So, take that for what you want.
And if I could, there's one last thing, and I'll keep it short.
To point to that, I don't disagree with him. I don't know if I rank it the same. I really enjoyed it. I definitely need rewatches, but to be honest, the length kind of deters me from like running back out to see it again.
Too late. I already got my tickets tomorrow.
I have tickets for tomorrow at noon Central Time.
We'll
see if I make that. But the one last thing I'll say before we wrap is this movie dearly misses Chadwick Boseman. I get this movie does a good job of writing him off, and it's beautifully told, but damn, I didn't realize how big of a presence he had on screen until this movie,
right?
And it ended. And the first film, because the first film, he's bouncing off everybody, and it's super well done. And to me, like Michael B. Jordan kind of steals the first movie for me. But in
Black
this
Panther's
one,
had 2 of the most solid villains in the MCU, back to back.
Oh, 1000%. But in this movie, it misses Chadwick so much. Like literally, it misses him. But the movie would have benefited if he was in it, and the real life circumstances around it suck. But damn, I miss Chadwick Boseman. I really do.
You had Dan, and then you lost him.
I want to know what was the point that I lost him at.
Dan, put it in the chat. Which point were you talking about?
Yeah.
Jesse, wrap up your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm just going to wrap up quick thoughts. So I'll just lead with my rating, and I'd say, and maybe I'll switch just a little bit after sitting on it a little bit longer, but I'm gonna give this movie a solid 8 out of 10, which means largely enjoyed. Definitely a thumbs up. If this were Rotten Tomatoes, it'd be getting the thumb up. Great performances. We didn't talk about the music really at all. Ludwig did exceptional work again. I love all the Wakandan themes. I love the Dora Milaje theme, and everything that comes in just comes in so strong. And then they did a lot of really good stuff with Namor and Talokan as far as the music goes. So I want to give a shout out to the music. Had a good time with it. I do agree with Chris that it did miss Chadwick Boseman. There was elements missing that couldn't really be helped, but I think for how big of a swing they had to take to make this movie a success, I think they succeeded much more largely than they failed on it. And I had a very positive experience, and I was emotionally attached to the entire runtime. So I can't wait to get into spoilers here after the show. Is there any comments that we want to address before we move on?
Sure. Yeah, I started a few comments here over the side, starting back at the bottom. You're right, Mike. I think we do see the 5 stages of grief. This was when Chris was talking initially. And yeah, you see it from start to finish. You see a lot of anger, resentment, retribution, and everything in between. And then, finally some acceptance and moving on with not moving on with our lives. Like, it's hard to move on, but, accepting it and living with it. Right. Kevin Davis. I think it'll do more than that. I mean, the first one made 1.3 domestic and like 2 billion. No, it made 1.5 overall and like 700 domestic, right? That's what it was?
Something like that.
I mean, okay, so 5 to 530 domestic. That's not bad, especially for kind of this day and age where I think things are a lot more saturated nowadays.
This way, does it crack the $1 billion worldwide?
I would say worldwide, yeah.
I think it creeps past it.
Did Doctor Strange do it?
No. 900.
Close. Close, though.
Yeah.
I think.
But the first Black Panther did double what the first Doctor Strange did.
That's also valid.
Right.
Well, again, Black Panther was like a cultural phenomenon, and I want to know if this movie.
Me and all my wizard buddies ran to the theater to see Doctor Strange.
And me and all my Black friends, we ran in the theater to go see Black Panther multiple times.
And I've seen Thor a lot. Dan just said he was agreeing with a lot what you were saying, and thanks, so lost me with the missing chat. So Dan disagree with both of you guys. I think
go ahead, Sean.
I think I'm on board with that. I think it's hit or miss. It's plus or minus. Like, it's not the entire movie, but definitely I think Chadwick, just as a performer, as an actor, as a person, he was just so charismatic, and he was a light in anything he was in. So it's hard. Everything misses Chadwick. So I think maybe that's a bit kind of
right
on that.
Yeah, like, and when I say missing Chadwick, like, of course, if we still had Chadwick Boseman with us, this movie is obviously different from top to bottom.
Yeah.
But with the unfortunate passing and them having to reflect that, or them choosing to reflect that in the universe, I appreciated what they did with him in this movie and how they respected him, and they how they did his legacy. But I mean, I'm gonna miss Chadwick in movies outside of Marvel. I'm gonna miss Chadwick in as his character.
Yeah.
But they did it beautifully in the film. But I see why people, I see your point, Dan. I see you followed up on it in the comments. Like, I see you, Dan.
And last but not least, this is why you're looking forward to spoiler discussions, because Mike has thoughts. Well, good news, because tomorrow you can check out our spoiler review. We are actually going to record that right now, and we'll drop it at some point tomorrow, maybe 10 to 12-ish PT, and you can tune back in and check us out and give us a like and a comment like you're going to do on this video as soon as we go off air, because you love us, and you're going to do that for us.
You're good people.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, that pretty much wraps up our discussion. Hopefully you enjoyed this. Make sure to comment down below with some of your keep your thoughts in the comments spoiler free, please, because people visiting this video probably don't want to be spoiled. But when you pop over to the other video tomorrow, spoilers.
I do agree with Dan, but that was a negative for me, because I thought I needed just a little less of that.
I see you, Dan. I see you.
All right, and with that, guys, we will say goodbye. We are signing off. This has been Jesse Swift, Chris Anthony Lopez on that side, and Sean Wingblade down there. We'll catch you on the spoiler review coming up tomorrow. Until next time, keep it real. Bye-bye.